Hello, I'm Chuck Martin, and welcome to the Voices of the Internet of Things. With me today is Joe Maillie, Director of Business Development for IoT at LEDvance. Joe's focuses on the marketing strategy for the IoT business unit known as Sylvania Smart, the LEDvance division that produces IoT-enabled lighting products. Joe is the former co-founder of MobiHealth News and was project manager at Chin & Curtis. We're here at the North American headquarters of LEDvance in Wilmington, Massachusetts. Welcome, Joe.
Thanks, Chuck. Happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me to join.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this. So can you tell me, a lot of our listeners probably aren't aware of where LEDvance fits, where Osram fits, where Sylvania, everyone knows Sylvania, but can you put that in context for us?
Yeah, sure. It's always good to start this conversation by talking a bit about the Sylvania brand, because I think that's really why we're here today. Sylvania has been a lighting brand for almost 100 years, actually traces its roots locally here to the area north of Boston. Started around the 1900s, really when the light bulb became the light bulb. And since then, the brand's been owned by different entities. Most recently it was held by the German industrial firm Osram, and recently we transitioned to ownership by LEDvance. So a good thing for us overall, brought our supply chain a lot closer to the Chinese manufacturing facilities that produce a lot of the LED products that we sell and market, and importantly really gave us kind of refreshed rights to use the Sylvania brand, and now the Sylvania Smart brand, which is what we're here to talk about today. And the trajectory there really follows the lighting industry in general. Lighting used to be a real industrial process. You needed lines that blew glass and put gas in and put filament in the bulbs. And with the way the industry has transitioned to LED, this is much more of a solid state technology, and it's simply something that isn't really produced by industrial type organizations anymore. It's printed like a chipset. So good things for us, and excited to tell you more about Sylvania now.
So tell me about Sylvania Smart. Why Sylvania Smart?
Sure. So Sylvania Smart is the brand that encompasses everything we produce here that is connected, and by connected I mean pairs into some sort of system and can be controlled through that system, by apps on your phone, through voice control, futuristically through things like AI and AR, mind control at some point, I'm sure, too.
Chips in your fingers.
Yes. Yeah.
So what's the state of what you're producing today? I mean, you used to be doing traditional old-fashioned light bulbs, and now you're doing extremely smart bulbs.
Yeah, so Sylvania as a smart group really started 4 or 5 years ago in Germany with the brand LEDvance, which we brought into the States and put it into market. And we started small with a few different form factors, your typical A-line bulbs and your B-line bulbs, and we pretty quickly expanded that portfolio into what is now really almost 30, I believe we have about 30 different products that are connected. Everything from your standard bulbs up through sensors and switches, motion detectors, and even into commercial applications, both in Zigbee-based form factor and now in Bluetooth-based as well.
And are you still dealing with old-fashioned traditional light bulbs that just go on and off?
So I don't think we'll ever escape the on and off light bulb, and for good reason. There's a reason on and off really dictates the primary control of a light bulb. But I think what we're offering is the future of that. We're getting beyond on and off and dimming, and we're talking more about changing color temperature to match mood or to help improve health. We're pairing a light control with systems that help not only react to what you need during your day, but also help predict what you're going to want or need. So schedules and routines, setting scenes, and putting exciting light into places where people would not typically put light.
And where's the big action? Is it commercial or consumer?
It's split. It's hard to kind of define where the big action is. This division we're in right now is primarily focused on residential applications, so smart home, and specifically on the DIY side of that. But there certainly is a large consumer market, and it's something we're looking very carefully at and developing towards too.
So what do consumers want? All the research I show, lighting is like the top of the list. Lighting and music through their voice-activated systems, that's kind of what people are doing.
Sure, yeah. I think when a consumer starts making a decision to smarten up their home, lighting is almost always at the top of the list, which is great for us. But it makes sense. It's easy. It's accessible, and lighting is so immediately impactful in your life. When I started working here, I had a kitchen that got almost no natural sunlight, and we replaced all of our bulbs with smart bulbs that also had the ability to tune white temperature. So to go from a real high intensity blue on the Kelvin scale to help us get energized in the morning and activate circadian rhythm, and we could transition that throughout the day to a white temperature that more closely mirrored what the sun was doing outside, and at night create a nice amber atmosphere for a cocktail hour. As a first experience with smart lighting, it was incredible to see how quickly that really changed my life and improved my mornings especially. But also, an application like gently waking up to light, replacing my alarm clock with bulbs that, a feature that we have in our product allows you to set the bulb so that it gently wakes you up at a certain time. And you can pretty quickly start to experience the effects of lighting in a really positive way. And I think, like I said, it's also really accessible. We're not requiring screwdrivers and engineering diagrams to install and replace. We're just screwing in a light bulb, essentially.
Right.
Obviously, we're connecting it to a system and doing all the things that other connected products inside the house are doing as well. But there is an ease of use, there is a simplicity factor there, and there is that rather immediate gratification that you get from it too.
From a consumer standpoint, do they look at the light bulb as, I get a light bulb, I'm starting to understand what a smart home is, I need a smart something else?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the question kind of goes to what's the most common gateway drug for smart home?
Right.
And lighting is that easy one, and it is oftentimes the lowest cost way to get in. Partner systems that our bulbs interact with, very commonly tell us that lighting is simply just the most popular one, and I think it goes right back to that conversation we just had about it being easy and accessible, and immediately impactful. So I think there are a lot of people out there that would identify lighting as the gateway drug.
And do they get a consumer? Do they start with this and just basically screw it in, use it as light bulb, and then start to say, it can do this and it can do this, or do they learn that before the purchase?
I think at this phase of development in smart home in general, people are coming into this category at least somewhat educated. We're not really quite yet at the mass market level where people are stumbling into this and then realizing that the light bulbs have these capabilities. Our lowest cost light bulb is $10. I can't imagine anyone going in a store and deciding to buy a $10 bulb versus a $2 bulb, and then suddenly discovering that it's smart. People who are buying into this right now are thinking strategically, and I think that's what's defining the customer pathway towards purchase for sure.
And what's typical? Does a consumer get one to try it out? Do they go in and buy a pile of them to say, I'm going to do a room? What's the pattern that you've seen?
Yeah, I mean, everyone's different, but we do see that once people buy one, they typically do come back and buy multiple. So it starts with one lamp in one room, quickly transitions to an entire room, and then into multiple rooms throughout the house.
So back to the idea of the gateway drug.
Yeah, sure. And one of the most impactful things that I've seen since I've started here is the quick rise of voice command platforms. And this isn't anything most people aren't already seeing or thinking about, but it's really moved this industry along very quickly. And a couple of quick observations that I've seen. You know, my in-laws bought an Echo before I did and started commanding their lights before I did, which was miraculous. And then, I have a 2-year-old son at home right now who is so close to telling Alexa to turn the lights on. So you start to see patterns of adoption and this industry widening and through interesting groups. Elderly people can use this type of technology to stay in their homes longer. And kids growing up now, their expectation for this technology to do what they want it to do is amazing, and I think that's really going to shape the way that they will interact with light, for the rest of their lives.
Can you talk a bit about your line of products? You said you start at $10. I presume that's a pretty basic smart bulb. Then where's it go from there?
Yeah, so Sylvania offers 2 different product portfolios. The first is where we started in Zigbee. So low power mesh wireless bulbs. They speak an open standard language, and they connect to most of the popular smart home hubs out there. Wink, SmartThings, now the Echo Plus, and some exciting other ones coming online soon. And we just launched the first iteration of our Bluetooth technology, which is a HomeKit product. So this bulb interacts with the ecosystem that Apple has created. And interestingly, it requires no hub. It can be controlled directly from the phone, and also using the Home app that Apple installs on every device.
So how do consumers decide which way to go?
Yeah, it's a good question. There's a lot of choices to be made. I think consumers need to. Well, the pathway is different for everyone, for sure. So, some people start with, I want lighting or I want locks. And a lot of those systems can be controlled in silo. You don't necessarily need a system around that. But once you have the lock, then you want the thermostat and you want the lights and you want to be able to control them together. And at that point, it becomes a question of which ecosystem and how do I connect them. So that leads a lot of people into deciding on a hub, and that typically dictates which groups of products can be controlled. But another way to look at it too is some people are really diehard Apple users, like me. I've had an iPhone since 2. I've got a watch. I've just got these earpods, which are amazing, and it's really easy for me to just say, I want to stay inside that ecosystem, and Apple makes it really easy by offering up certified HomeKit products. So I have that certainty that as long as I go out and buy a product that's HomeKit certified, I know it's going to work. So I think that notion of that confidence that I know it's going to work is really what defines how people approach it and which ecosystems they choose.
So as a company, do you have to be in every system?
I mean, we want to be, of course, but you do have to pick and choose. And I will say that the ecosystems we choose to work with are ones that we think are dependable and offer consumers a really good experience, and are also scalable for the future too. There are a lot of different manufacturers out there, and they take different approaches. Some of them choose to develop products that speak specific languages. We have always taken the approach of developing products on open standards and allowing them to speak to other good quality products that speak those same standards. And I think that's what's really defining how this market is evolving.
So what kind of speed do you see the market going from a consumer adoption standpoint? Is it a straight up curve? Is it slow? Was it explosive this year? Is it going to be explosive next year? What does it look like?
It was certainly, I would say I noticed it start to become explosive right around this time last year, being kind of that build up into the holiday shopping period. A lot of that had to do with voice command becoming something real and popular. Kind of most recent analyst numbers peg Echo devices at about 15 million in the market right now. If you look at a U.S. population is 350 million-ish, so we're still at somewhere small, but that really started to drive it up. And then I'd say that trajectory has really continued into this year. And recently, with all of the news coming out of some of the big tech companies, Google, Amazon, really expanding that product category, Apple entering with HomePod and adding some more muscle to HomeKit, it's all fueling it. And I think that explosion that started around now last year has continued, and I see momentum building too.
So some latest projections came out actually just yesterday that there are going to be 70 million U.S. households with voice devices in a number of years from now. Does a Sylvania Smart get to look at that wave and say, okay, for every smart home we have this percentage, we know we're going to have light bulbs in it? Or do you just kind of disconnect from that and say, well, we're workable with those systems, so when they grow, maybe they'll get our bulbs?
Yeah, I'm not sure we look at it one way or the other. When it comes to voice being the driver for all this, the important thing for us is to make sure those platforms are controlling our bulbs in the right way. And then the market kind of leads consumers to it rather than us pushing consumers to the market.
So how do you market these bulbs?
Yeah, obviously on shelf is a great way to get people to see them, but for the most part, based on the way where we're at in terms of smart home evolving, online is by far the easiest, most cost-effective, and best way to market these kinds of products.
Like search term kind of stuff?
Yeah, sure. So there's definitely some paid advertising, some paid search terms, blog posts, all of those different types of digital outreach we employ. Those have been the most effective for sure. So
what does your consumer research show you in terms of where the market's going?
I mean, in general, it shows that the market is growing, expanding, getting bigger. We're moving closer to a time when it's not just tech enthusiasts that are out there tinkering with this stuff. We're moving closer to a period where those people that were kind of on the line between wanting to jump into this and holding back, that they're starting to get into it. Market research all indicates that things are growing and we're there with it.
So what you're developing a lot of the future stuff here in the labs I just shot in the back room. What does the future look like in terms of lighting?
So right now, when it comes to connected or smart lighting, we're at a phase where the protocol that the light speaks really determines which ecosystem it can interact with, and through that, which voice platform it can interact with. So we have a Zigbee line for Hub, and we have a Bluetooth line for HomeKit and for other future iterations of that product. But I think what the future looks like is these protocol wars, or these, just determining which ecosystem you're playing in based on a protocol. That's got to go away. So I think the future looks a lot more simple for consumers. This product category, I think, for a long time has been plagued by systems that are not intuitive and aren't as easy to set up. So I think everything you see us developing now is focused around delivering an experience to a consumer that's just easy. We need to get to the point where we're just screwing in a light bulb and things are working. And if we're not doing that, or we're not headed towards that, then I think we're failing. But fortunately, we are headed towards that.
So do you see basically plug-and-play light bulbs, like when you plug in Echo, it basically it's on. Yeah. There's nothing to it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great example and one that's really relevant for us, because Echo Plus is the new device from Amazon that has the Smart Home Hub built into it, and through simple setup, it makes pairing in Zigbee devices incredibly easy. Literally, what Amazon's done here, and really to our benefit and to the benefit of consumers, is that you have the ability to screw in a light bulb and command Echo through your voice to discover devices, and it pulls them in automatically. That's a level of simplicity that I don't think would have ever been possible without the presence of a company like Amazon or Google Home, or Apple leading this.
So do you have to follow those things, or do you get upfront notice that this is coming, so you pair with it?
Yeah, it's a complicated question to respond to, because I have to be respectful of my partnerships. But you do partner with these companies, basically. Yeah, no, absolutely, and for the most part, they've all been very open and willing, and excited to work with a company that really knows lighting. I think there may have been at the beginning of all this a notion that lighting isn't that complicated, that it's just on and off and dimming and color control is that, but there's actually quite a bit of science behind it, and I think we've been able to help certain partners open their eyes to what's really possible with lighting. I mentioned examples of waking up to lighting and tuning white to meet certain times of day, but there's a lot more that's possible with smart lighting than necessarily what you're seeing out there right now. And I think we've been able to work effectively with partners to help them see that.
So what else is a connected light going to be able to do in the future? In stores, for example, they're being used to identify locations of people based on lighting to the phone, that kind of thing. But from a consumer standpoint, what else is a light bulb going to be able to do?
Yeah, it's a good question, and it's something that I think keeps us all up at night here on the Smart team. One of the interesting things about lighting is that we have access to power line. So versus like a smart door lock that's limited to battery supply, I have access right into the power line that's being fed into a commercial building or into a home. So what we're actually able to put into a light bulb is essentially endless. I can put motion detectors, I can put backup power, I can put, you can imagine all of the possibilities. I can put speakers into the bulb, but it becomes a question of, what's really practical. And I think for most people, they just want to be able to control their lighting. They want to be able to access some new features, but I don't know that they're necessarily looking to us to deliver a light bulb, speaker, smart detector. We can do it, if it's something that the market looks for.
So what would the $500 light bulb look like?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you can kind of use your imagination, but you see some interesting things out in the market right now. One of our competitors produces a smart bulb that also transmits an infrared signal, and that helps security cameras inside the home actually see in the dark. There's a lot of locational benefits that you can see happening now too. You can kind of imagine devices moving throughout the house, whether it's Rosie the robot. I couldn't get through this podcast without making a Jetsons reference, but you can see a lot of more devices are going to be moving throughout your home, and I think a logical way for us to go is to help those devices locate themselves inside the home.
So is this likely to be technology that the consumer doesn't necessarily want, but they have, and it turns out to be extremely useful?
Yeah, I mean, I think especially for lighting, like we kind of have to be as invisible as possible, and as long as we're supporting the systems that are controlling the lighting and helping that ecosystem of connected products inside the home either work more effectively. I mean, the big benefit of Zigbee mesh is that you have so many light bulbs throughout the house that we, just by virtue of being a node inside that network, we strengthen that network. But I think that's really the role for lighting. We need to focus on delivering a really good lighting experience, helping consumers understand more about what's possible, and making that easy for them to access too.
So do you basically sit here and essentially invent and then wait for the market to be ready for what you invented?
Yeah, I mean, to a certain degree, to be perfectly honest with you, just getting light bulbs to interact with the various different systems we interact with is a lot of work. We spend a lot of time working with our partners like SmartThings and Wink, Amazon Echo, to make sure that the experience that they're giving consumers, we're helping deliver on. So that's a big piece of it. And then obviously finding ways to reduce cost is really a big part of what we do here. We started our Zigbee-based line, I think simple on up dim bulb was in the $30 range. Now we're down to 10, and of course we're going to push for lower than that too. That's what Sylvania has been known for a long time, and that's where a lot of our efforts are focused.
Is there a price point that you've discovered where consumers say, well, I won't pay $10, I won't pay $12 for a bulb, I'll pay $10? Is there some point that they say, oh, it's worth it?
Yeah, I don't know if we've yet determined that. $10 is a threshold that we set as a goal for a long time, and I can certainly say it seems like consumers are buying more of them based on that. But it's hard to put a real solid dollar figure on that.
Right. Thank you, Joe Maillie, and thank you all for listening to the Voices of the Internet of Things.
Okay. Thanks, Chuck.